Oh, g'day there. Paul Lyons here. Painting 27, I think it is now, of the Lyons on Lockdown series. This is a rather contorted tree in the Bledisloe Park, which is just at the entrance to Massey University. So the interest in the painting is in the just in this complicated shape. So whether or not we'll be able to do justice to that, we will see. So my expectation is that I'll be able to use my credit card. Knew it had to come in useful for something. To make that contorted shape. So we'll just have to see, because it's gunge. Not the way that I normally do this credit card type work. Try to paint the details of something, but it seems that it might be able to just indicate this the nature of this tree. So my plan, if indeed you can say that I have a plan, is to work on the tree first, and then paint its background around it. Sort of palette knife. I've tried using a palette knife for doing this sort of thing and haven't found it works in quite the same way. So at the moment it's just yellow and a dark colour, which is either blue or neutral tint that I'm using. Well, I suppose the neutral tint is actually been used for other things. It's just on the board, so it's got other colours adulterating it. Down as you go when you're doing something like this, and coming back and trying to adjust what I did at the beginning. Down here towards the bottom of the tree, of course, there are lots of dark sections. be really quite dark in there. So I've more or less done that light a bit there. Just put more light on that I don't think has helped a lot. Not enough water on it to be any use. One of the attributes of this style of painting is that the paint tends not to diffuse quite so much from one area into another. Tends to stay where you put it. Which can be quite useful. So one of the things that we try and take advantage of in watercolour is this idea of wet into wet painting, where the paint from one area diffuses into another. So I'm just about to put down some water that I didn't mean to pick that up, that I can use to allow the paint to diffuse into, which it's not doing very much anyway. Clearly I didn't weight that anywhere near enough. So that's the sort of thing I wanted to happen when I put the credit card down. Put a bit more blue in. It's becoming very dominated by the neutral tint, I think. And there's no red in this tree at all, but I might branch out and put some in anyway, just for the sake of a bit of variation in the colour. So this is a dark section that I'm filling in at the moment, so I'm putting down a base layer of, well, yellow paint, but it's turned green, of course. That being what yellow paint does at the slightest provocation. So we want dark, a hard edge going along that there and there, also to separate it from this section of trunk. So that hard edge, gets extended out. And then we've got these sections where it appears that a parasite tree has wrapped itself around. What am I going to do there? Having just said that I'm going to add blue to things, I've just added more of the neutral tint. And again. I kind of want something to indicate. Have I got that? I kind of want something to indicate that there's a big hole in the tree there. So I think that's kind of getting there, isn't it? Dark area. I think. Kind of feel as though we want something coming down here. The actual tree doesn't have anything going down there, but I feel as though I might put in some sort of buttress to keep the shape kind of balanced on the paper. There we are, let's give it a bit of continuity along that edge. Okay. So there we have a tree, maybe a little bit of extra dark down at the bottom here, and maybe this is where I'll add that red where you simply can't see it as red, but to darken the area underneath the roots. There we are, that's probably a bit better. Is there anything else that really needs darkening? Maybe a little bit under there, I don't think that it needs it very much though. And let's run some structure up there. I think I might leave it more or less at that, as I come back to it later and decide to mess it up. Okay, so we've put in our main item in the picture, and now we're going to try to add in the surrounding environment, which is sunlit bush area. So there are various bits of bush that are so sunlit that I'm just going to represent them as white, well, the colour of the paper anyway, which is a very pale cream. And will no doubt show up in the eventual painting as pure white, because of the colours of the other components of the painting. So at the moment these are just leaves, and they're just catching the sunlight. So there's some tall, slim plant here that's got a series of flat leaves that are reflecting the light. And I'll put something in down here, and some of the stuff in the leaf litter is fairly well illuminated as well. It doesn't have any particular shape to it, I don't think. And well, let's put in a few more leaves up here that are fairly well illuminated, but I don't want to take it right up into the corner because we don't want to drag people's eyes away from the main attraction to too great an extent. I think that'll do for the areas of the painting which are pure white. So we just now hang around and wait until the masking fluid has dried. Right, now our first application of masking fluid has dried. It's time for an extremely pale green wash to indicate the colours of the leaves. So let's just pick up a bit of yellowy green and apply it. Mind you, I might put in a bit of brown raw sienna, which I don't think I've got in my palette, so I might go and get some. So, what was it I'm going to do? Put this very pale yellowy green, maybe a little more colour than that. I don't really want to. Yeah, that's probably about right. Just suggest the colour of the next darkest layer of the leaves in the bush. So there's no sky visible in this painting at all. It's all leaves and branches and gnarly old trees. It's gone a bit greener than I anticipated, but it's alright. It's not going to destroy things. A bit of water in this area, which I don't think is very wet yet. And I want there to be some light coming through here, as though the roots are separate from the main trunk of the tree. So I need to probably stop at that point with any washers that go in there. But now, more drying. This is the make it wet, make it dry, make it wet, make it dry process that seems to happen. Okay, so the second layer of masking fluid is now on. I think I'm going to try to put some leaves that catch the light, basically running in a diagonal across here, just to complement the shape of the tree. In the photograph that I'm using as my reference, there's a sort of run of light going up here and a run of light going up there, which is a little bit boring. So I'm going to try and see if I can make the run of light go diagonally instead of having these three parallel things, which might be a little bit tedious. Okay, so off we go. Layer 3. So we're still dealing with fairly light colours at this stage. I don't need to have a huge amount of paint on my brush, so that's one way of trying to make sure that the colours aren't too dim and dismal. Also not going for a perfect wash, so I think that some variation in the amount of wash that's on the paper can't do any harm, otherwise it tends to look just too uniform. You can see that there's a lot of texture there, but we want there to be some degree of variation. That's possibly a bit darker than I wanted. So let's enlighten it. And again, let's make the leaf litter a bit browner, quite a lot browner as it turns out. I'm still avoiding that little area underneath the root arch there. But I might just put some water down so that it blends without a hard edge. That's dealt with that, I think. Ooh, I need to darken that, but not as much as that, but that's okay, not a big deal. Okay. So these washes are not completely uniform. I might just put in an indication of a bush there. Never really sure about doing that, but about painting in these shapes when I'm using masking fluid to pick out the texture. But anyway, we'll see how it goes. More drying, so I'll turn you off and come back. Ready for the next layer of paint. So time for another layer of green, hopefully a little darker than the last. Just stalking this overall appearance little by little. Oh, let's put a bit of water down first. And down towards the bottom of the picture, let's make the browny areas a bit darker as well, over the leaf litter. And then let's bring that up close to the trunk, and that closer to the trunk as well. And wait for it to dry. Then put on another layer of masking fluid. And then I'll come back and put another layer of paint on. Okay, time for the next layer of paint. Well, in fact, I kind of lost track, and I'm not sure whether I've put on two sets of masking fluid without a paint layer in between. I just kind of forgot where I was up to because I was busy doing other complicated things like watching television. So I may have got two lots of masking fluid that I'll be overpainting. This time. Making up successively darker layers of paint. And also, I think, not necessarily applying them evenly. I think that if we make up a complete wash, it just all looks the same. A bit like using tomato sauce on everything. Everything ends up tasting the same. Let's just put a bit of variation in. And then at the bottom of the picture, where it's not full of chlorophyll, it goes a bit browner. Maybe I should have picked up some burnt umber for doing that rather than just the raw sienna. Don't know if there's very much paper there left to paint. I might just darken that a bit more, and in amongst that bush as well. And given that I want to try to have a band of light going sort of diagonally across the painting, let's just put in some dark areas where that band of light isn't. So I've already put in quite a lot of masking along that general structure. Now we'll try and add to that by darkening up some of the areas around it. Alright, time for some drying to take place. Catch you at the next stage. Now I'm wondering if this is the time when I should put in some fallen logs or something like that, something that isn't just texture. So if I put in some tree trunks, maybe something growing up and something that's fallen across the background, if I put something in that's fallen across the background, it's going to be it's going to appear as though it's behind all of these leaves, because of course the place where I put the paint down for the fallen over tree will not include the places where these leaves are, but they're pretty when they're all sparkly like that. So that will lie behind all of this leaf herbage, and then I could maybe even end up putting another layer of leaves right behind all of that as well. That would be an interesting thing to try. So let's see if we can't mimic this sort of style of the tree trunk here with paint and a paintbrush. Of course, I can't use a credit card because that will scrape the masking fluid off. I'm going to have to try and do something similar with a brush. I didn't need to do that. Little drips down there that are unnecessary. So let's just put a yeah, I need it fairly thick if I'm going to cover over the earlier paint, or perhaps I should have scraped off some of the earlier paint. So I've got a fairly thick layer of yellow, and then we'll put something else into it. Maybe if we use a dark green to indicate a moss-covered tree trunk. So it's not quite capturing the same very informal style, is it? But I think it'll work reasonably well. And let's have a branch that comes off just for visual interest's sake. Pick as much dark as I can to. Oh, there we go. That seems to have more or less worked. Let's have a branch that goes down here, and that is obviously acting as the support for the trunk. There we go. That's what I want. And something coming out over here over the leaf litter. I suppose it's going to be buried in leaf litter now, isn't it? Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Because when I take the masking fluid off, where I'm putting this tree trunk, there's going to be a whole lot of stuff covering over the tree trunk, leaf litter. But of course I can always paint over that, can't I? Paint some dark over it. Finally managed to get something that's reasonably dark there. And in there as well. As you can see, this is diffusing into the yellow. So that should just about, maybe I'll darken that section as well. Carry that on through, don't I? Because this is the branch from the upper section. Just try to cover over that. Alright. And let's blend that in a bit. Okay, so we'll dry that. Okay, I've applied another layer of masking fluid, and I was trying to work out exactly how I was going to deal with the fallen tree and the fact that there's masking fluid here. And what's going to happen is, first of all, that I'm not going to, I could mask the entire tree, and then when I do my next layer of darker green, then it wouldn't go on the tree, so I would retain the colours of the tree. But that seems to me too much of a hassle. What I'll try and do simply is to avoid the tree with my brush. That'll save me a certain amount of difficult task. And I think also I might put in some stalks. These are hardly trunks for some of these bushy plants, but they need to have something to support them. So these stalks that I'm adding will be going in behind the leaves, because the leaves of course will prevent the paint from reaching the paper, so we end up with stalks behind, or trunks in this particular case, behind the existing leaves. Not sure why they're all, except for that one tending towards the to the left, but well, that's all right. So there's a bunch of leaves up there that need some sort of support, so let's give them some, and let's have something going up there as well, and up in between the tree branches, which of course helps to define those tree branches. I seem to have developed a habit of having a branch in the stalk just after something goes past a tree branch, which is unlikely to be a rule that is followed in nature. So I probably shouldn't be putting these stalks in. It's just occurred to me if I'm going to put another wash over the top, which is likely to lift this paint, because the neutral tint lifts quite easily. So might spend a while trying to make sure this is really properly dry before I start putting an overwash. But it is beginning to look sort of vaguely bush-like, isn't it, with the extra stalks. We'll leave that till later, I think. So we have to redo that that trunk anyway, once the masking fluid comes off. All right, I feel as though that might just about do it for that layer. So I'll spare you the drying process and come back to do the next layer of wash, hopefully without destroying those tree trunks, stalks. Alright, we're back again. Another layer of dark colour. And I might be a bit adventurous with my colour. Do you think I should? Still put in quite a lot of yellow to make sure it's green, but a fair amount of blue and red in amongst the pigment. And I've also pulled out some burnt umber. If I can get the lid off, to try and put some quite dark areas in amongst that leaf litter. So burnt umber and blue produce quite a decent dark colour. And the other thing I want to do is to blend that bit of light. I'm not sure that little bit of light coming through underneath the root. Sorry, we had a brief outage there. The battery went and died on me. So I've broken out the burnt umber and made quite a dark, mixing that with the blue. So our leaf litter is going to be a fairly dark part of the bush. I might just leave. I want to get the edge of that bulge in the tree clearly delineated. And there'll be some sort of shadow underneath there. I seem to have got on this side anyway. I'll just leave a bit of lighter area there. And I think that's probably plenty of really dark wash. Maybe I need just a little bit of darkness going up the side of that tree trunk there, because at the moment it's got a lighter edge that indicates a sort of lack of courage with the brush, where I haven't brought the pigment right up to the edge of the tree trunk. I don't know whether that's necessary or not, but all right. Yeah, maybe a little bit down here. Okay. Stop. I hear you say, stop, for God's sake. All right, I will. I'll dry that and remove the masking fluid, which is going to be a long and tedious job, and probably not very comfortable, but I'll come back to you when the masking fluid has been removed. Right, well, I've taken all the masking fluid off, and to be honest, I think I rather preferred it with the masking fluid on. It was more subdued everywhere except for this central tree. And furthermore, the uncovering of these leaves has put this tree out of clear view. So first thing I think I'm going to do is to try and bring that tree into more prominence. The fallen tree, that is. That's going to involve trying to put on enough paint to be opaque, which is a bit of a problem with light colours. You can't easily paint light colours over dark in watercolour, but with the yellow we seem to be able to get away with it sometimes. So we'll try that. So that's brought that tree forward. You see how the yellow is sort of becoming transparent again over on that part there. So we'll add some more yellow, and also try to bring it forward here. It's just disappeared too much. So it's in front of all of these leaves now, and I'll just lift. I think I'll have to put these ones out behind the tree as well. And I suspect that I may have to do the same thing with the section at the back. Which is kind of a pity, really. Okay, now the other major thing that needs to be done is that I think I need to darken this edge of the tree, because it's just not standing out the way it should. The tree is pretty much disappearing into the background. And in addition, I wanted the tree to have more of a lean on it, and so this has given me a chance to do that. So clarify the edge of the thing. I think it's drying off and having a look time, so I'll dry this off and stick it up on my little cutout frame and observe it for a while and see whether or not I think it's finished. I think I will think it's finished. I'll get back to you if it's not, but otherwise, well, it'll be fairly obvious from the video. Righto. So, thank you for keeping company with me this evening, and good night.